Chapter 1973. Huge amount of points. 1. Monarch rank and saint rank. That's a world of difference. No one could refuse such temptation. However, this deal. The first elder felt distressed. But, the first elder smiled. This old man still has to refuse. Why? Suluo was shocked. The first elder smiled bitterly and waved his hand. This old man can help you find a way, but this deal can't be carried out. Alas, this old man can't help it. Suluo was kind enough to help him ask for medicine, but he couldn't take this deal, because the city master wouldn't like it. Suluo was very smart. Then she thought of the key points and smiled. So, first elder, do you have any suggestions? If it's effective, Suluo will accept your kindness. At that time, in order to return this favor, she would offer the emperor grade spirit repairing pills, wouldn't she? It was just another way of saying it. Seeing Suluo in this way, the first elder's evaluation of Suluo was a few degrees better. He smiled and touched the sparse white beard. Has other training camps besides the genius training camp, such as the genius preparatory training camp, such as the elite training room. Having heard that, Sulu's eyes suddenly lit up. These training camps, the third elder can't intervene? The first elder smiled, but he said nothing, but the meaning of that face was evident. If the third elder couldn't intervene, it could be considered. The elite training room is suitable for your two friends whose strength was less than 10th rank. The first elder voice was mild. There is virtual teaching in the elite training room. After entering, you can come out after 1 year. But you don't have to worry about it. Those virtual magical beasts can't really hurt your two friends. In other words, as long as you go in, this year would be safe, very suitable for Anya Ming and Lan Xian. Suluo was very satisfied with this arrangement. The first elder added, the Genius Preparatory Training Camp is preparation for the Genius Training Camp. In Purgatory City, it is only second to the Genius Training Camp. Every year, candidates who enter the assessment of the Genius Training Camp must be from the Genius Preparatory Training Camp. Of course, you are the exception. This arrangement is really good. Suluo considered for a long time before finally nodding. Everyone has their own cultivation path to go. She can't always be by their side to protect them, so letting them go to their own path is the right way. It won't be easy to get into these places, will it? Suluo thought for a moment, then thought of the key to the matter. It's not difficult to send them in, but for you the difficulty is the tuition. The first elder smiled. Very expensive? Suluo frowned tightly. She had a bad feeling. The elite training room needs 10,000 points for one person for 1 year. The first elder looked at Suluo and smiled sympathetically. Suluo heard the words and took a breath of cold air. 10,000 points? For one person? That is to say, Lan Xian and Anya Ming need 20,000 points a year. 20,000, not 2,000. It's indeed really expensive. As for the Genius Preparatory Training Camp, the first elder's eyes was full of sympathy. The first year's tuition fee is 20,000 points. Suluo took a strong breath of cold air. Lan Xian and Anya Ming will cost 20,000 points together. Ziyan and Beichening will cost 40,000 together. That is to say, the four of them will pay 60,000 points for tuition per year. Chapter 1974. Huge amount of points, too. Suluo looked up at the sky in silence. She really wished a ray of thunder would strike her. This way is better. She had been trying her best to accumulate points recently. Ziyan has also won some points from Lu Yi, Qing Yi and Lin Banli, but there was only 8,000 points in total. Regarding the 60,000 points, that was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. The difference is still very far. First elder. Suluo suddenly hit the points to the first elder. The first elder helplessly spread his hand. You can only earn points by yourself. I have a token, but the grade is far less than you, and can only multiply points by 4. Suluo sighed helplessly. Multiplying by 4 was good for others, but in front of Suluo's diamond token that multiply points by 5, that one was inferior. In the manor on the hillside, the dim candlelight lighted up the window lattice, lighting up a thin figure. Suluo, with her hands folded, walked up and down the room anxiously, looking like she was full of depression. and was deeply troubled by a problem. Originally, she had to go to the genius training camp to report in 3 days, but because the first elder put in a word for her, she extended the time to 7 days. That is to say, she has to get 60,000 points in 7 days. In addition, 60,000 points was only the tuition fees, and their daily expenses could not be lacking. So in Su Luo's view, it's a matter of preparing 100,000 points. After deducting 60,000 points, the remaining 40,000 points would be given to them for other uses. How to spend points has been budgeted, but the problem is how to earn 100,000 points in the shortest time. Looking at Lu Yi that was distressed and have a pale complexion after she lost a few thousand points, she wished she could take a risk out of desperation. Su Luo went around the room with her hands clasped behind her back. Su Luo turned his back and circled the room. But thinking about it, thoughts came out one by one, but she put it out. After thinking about it, she couldn't think of a quick way to accumulate points for a while. Su Luo pushed open the window with both hands. Fresh air came in instantly, and Su Luo's dizziness improved. But the solution has not been figured out yet. Su Luo stood by the window. Her deep and beautiful eyes was looking at the distant sky. Is the only way really to sell pills? The pills was given to her by her master for her to take, not for exchanging points. What's more, let alone selling one pill now, then will she sell the pills if she lacks more points? What's the difference between her and the adults that's still living with and depending on their parents? If there's any other way, she really doesn't want to sell the emperor-grade pills. Su Luo looked at the flowers and plants in the courtyard and sighed deeply. Suddenly, her figure shook, and her tightly frowning eyebrows smoothed out in an instant. Heavens! How can I forget myself? How can I neglect myself? Su Luo slapped her head heavily. Only then did Su Luo think that when they came to Purgatory City, they passed through the misty forest. At that time, a group of them deliberately went around the misty forest and collected a lot of medicinal herbs. Those herbs that could be used by Master Apothecary. Because of the extreme shortage of apothecary in Purgatory City, those herbs in the misty forest was full of spirituality, and it was pleasing to watch, which made her collect a large number of them. Now these herbs were lying moldy in her space. Chapter 1975. Huge amount of points 3. I'm really stupid, extremely stupid. Su Luo was speechless about her ability to remember. For a long time, there was her master, the emperor-ranked apothecary, standing in front of her. He was as insurmountable as a majestic mountain. In addition, she usually used the emperor-grade pills that have the best healing effect given by her master, so she had not worked hard on refining pills for a long time. But after all, master is master. Ikana? T always be with her all the time. She still had to rely on herself. Moreover, she must be promoted to the Grandmaster Apothecary as soon as possible. Only then could she help to heal Nangong Luyan. Reach Master Rank Apothecary. Su Luo gritted her teeth and gave herself an order. What's more, Su Luo felt that her skill was already quite good at this time. She's only a thin line away from Master Rank Apothecary. Maybe she would be lucky enough to success in one attempt. Su Luo clenched her fist and encouraged herself in her heart. Because medicinal cauldron and herbs were in her space, Su Luo lay flat on the bed early and straightened her body, while her consciousness quickly went into her space. With her natural perception of plants, Su Luo closed her eyes and selected the herbs needed for spirit-repairing pills. Although she could not give Emperor-grade spirit-repairing pill to the first elder, but if she could refine Master-grade spirit-repairing pills, it would be better than when the first elder burned the 10,000 spirit-burning incense. Su Luo put the herbs into the medicinal cauldron one by one according to the medicinal prescription in her memory. In the past, Su Luo used to use the third type of true fire of the little dragon, but now the little dragon was not present, so she couldn't use it. But it didn't matter, without the little dragon. She now happened to have the Yun Luo Red Lotus to make up for it. Yun Luo Red Lotus, the first cluster of different fire born after the emergence of the heaven and earth. A world of heaven and earth, pure and astonishing. The Yun Luo Red Lotus not only had powerful attack power, but also a great help in refining medicine. It could help apothecary to greatly improve the success rate of refining medicine. After spending 49 hours, The first pot of spirit-repairing pills finally appeared. Su Luo smelled the rich scent of medicine. With her instinct and experience, she knew that the pills in this medicinal cauldron was good enough. But whether or not she could be promoted to a master apothecary was unknown, because the criterion was that each one must be even and plump. As long as one of them was slightly defective, Su Luo could not reach the rank of a master apothecary. Holding the black iron cover of the medicinal cauldron, Su Luo closed her eyes and slowly opened it. Leave it to fate. If it was unsuccessful, she could just try again. Don't know if Su Luo was just lucky, or she had the help of the Yun Luo Red Lotus, or both. When Su Luo opened her eyes, her face was full of great surprise. Her beautiful eyes were shining like the stars, her cheeks were pink and tender. Su Luo was very excited. She didn't expect it, she just experimented a little, but heavens actually cared for her like this, and actually let her success. Looking at the even, plump, crystal clear, and alluring white pills, Su Luo almost cried with joy. Master Apothecary. She was now a Master Apothecary. Only one step away from Grandmaster Apothecary. She could already faintly see the front door. Grandmaster Apothecary. Wait, I will reach it soon. Su Luo clenched her fist and gave herself great encouragement, and made great determination. Chapter 1976. Huge amount of points for. Su Luo smiled, smiling extremely happily, and her smile was extremely gorgeous. If outsiders know that Su Luo had been promoted to Master Apothecary at such a young age, it's very likely that no one would believe it. Even if they do, they would be frightened and faint. As everyone knew, the promotion of an apothecary was very difficult. It was much more difficult than the promotion of martial arts cultivation. At such a young age, no one could connect Su Luo as a master apothecary at all, okay? Her eyes were shining brightly, because what she had in mind now was points. With the pills, it means a steady stream of points. It was known that Su Luo had countless raw materials now. There was no time to lose, it was not too late. Su Luo was ready to take advantage of the time available to quickly refine the most needed pills, and consolidate her skills as a master apothecary. Therefore, Su Luo buried herself in refining pills. Fortunately, the time in her space was 10 times slower than in the outside. She spent 10 nights for it. Compared to the normal time in the outside, it was actually just 1 night. The darkest time before dawn had passed. The sun was rising from the horizon. In the clear morning light, the land seemed to be covered with a layer of fire-red gauze, which was confusing and interesting. Su Luo worked hard for 9 nights, refined nearly 50 bottles of pills, and used the remaining time to take a nap in her space. By the time it was light outside, Su Luo was fully awake. Su Luo looked at the 50 porcelain bottles arranged neatly in her space, and the excitement in her heart was beyond words. Points, these are all points. So, in the early morning, Su Luo called Ziyan and the others. Ziyan and the others went to bed very late last night, because they knew that Su Luo was distressed, but when they asked her what was the matter, she shook her head and said nothing. They discussed until it was dawn before they went to sleep, because they were exhausted. They hadn't slept long before being woken up by Su Luo's brain. Su Luo was immensely proud of herself, seeing Su Luo in high spirits. Ziyan immediately curious. What happened? How did you get so much better overnight? Quickly tell me, what secret recipe did you use? Su Luo was so elated, if she had a tail on her back, she would have raised it high long ago. Of course it's a good thing, and it's a good thing that kills 2 birds with 1 stone, guess. Su Luo sat on the yellow rosewood chair with her hand raised high and her eyes glanced on the teapot aside. Bei Qining immediately understood, poured tea for her, engaged in the act, and asked without thinking, "What's the good thing? Did you break through to Master Apothecary?" Su Luo just took a sip of the cup of tea. Hearing Bei Qining's words, she almost spurt out a mouthful of tea. Cough, cough, cough. Su Luo didn't spurt it out, but she choked. Finally, with great difficulty, she calmed down. She wiped the tea stains on the corner of her mouth, and looked at Bei Qining helplessly. How do you know? What? Bei Qining did not react for a while, stared blankly and asked. He just said it casually. As for what he said, he turned around and forgot. But Ziyan suddenly reacted. Suddenly her eyes sparkled like a dazzling diamond, and she pulled Su Luo, holding her hands excitedly. Luo Luo, is it true? Are you really promoted to Master Apothecary? This is impossible. Chapter 1977. Huge amount of points 5. Ziyan was almost unable to restrain herself because of her excitement. At this time, everyone also reacted. Impossible. You have been promoted to Master Apothecary? It's only been a few years. Lan Xian jumped up exaggeratedly, like a little puppy, turning and circling around Su Luo incessantly. Anya Ming was usually reserved, but at this moment, he also looked at Su Luo with amazement, and his eyes were obviously in disbelief. Because Anya Ming knew deeply how difficult it was to be promoted to a Master Apothecary. Su Luo was only this old. Su Luo smiled lightly when she saw everyone in disbelief, waving her hand. All of a sudden, there were a lot of bottles and jars on the empty round dining table. Most of these bottles and jars were white porcelain, with cork at the mouth. Bei Chenying's eyes suddenly brightened. He rushed up, picked up a porcelain bottle, opened it, and put it under his nose to smell. This is master-grade spirit repairing pills. This is master-grade spirit restoration pills. This is master-grade blood clotting pills. This is master-grade rebirth of flesh pill. Bei Chenying had tested every bottle. Finally, he looked at Su Luo with worshipping look and said, Luo Luo, you really aren't playing tricks? If you can't accept this fact, you can think of it that way. Su Luo said with a smile. After all, it was hard to believe that she's a master apothecary at such a young age. Ziyan was very curious. Luo Luo, don't conceal it from us. When did you get promoted to master apothecary? You actually haven't told us until now. Su Luo shouted in justice. If I say, I was just promoted last night, would you believe it? Won't believe it. The 4 people spoke in unison, share the same opinion, and shook their heads. Must not believe it. Determined not to believe it. A full table of master-grade pills could be refined one night? Wasn't this really a joke? Su Luo also felt that this matter could not be explained clearly, because the problem of time in her space was very difficult to explain clearly. Besides, she couldn't put the living people in her space, so they couldn't experience it. The question now is not when was I being promoted to a master apothecary. Su Luo was very clever at changing the topic and encouraged their morale. Do you think I took out these pills just because I want to accept your worship? Guys, points. You mean? Bei Chenying's eyes sparkled, brighter than the stars in the night sky. Everyone was not stupid. Su Luo just reminded them. They all knew the meaning behind it. Of course, otherwise, could it be that I took out these pills only for you to see? Of course it's for points. Su Luo was proud of herself and explained to everyone. Do you remember that I took you to make a detour in the blood mist forest? The materials of these pills on the table are from those medicinal herbs. Seeing that Bei Chenying and the others looked at the pills on the table foolishly and excitedly, Su Luo's mood suddenly became very good. Truthfully, there were so many medicinal herbs in the blood mist forest. At that time, they were just going around in circle and collected a lot of medicinal herbs. Those medicinal herbs were piled up like a haystack and looked cheap, but if one take to the aside, it could be auctioned at a high price. Chapter 1978. Huge amount of points 6. Bei Chenying suddenly got an idea and asked Su Luo, have you used all those medicinal herbs? How long will it last? Su Luo had been in a state of excitement before, so she didn't think about it much, but now she thought about the problem of the materials only after Bei Chenying reminded her. Yes, they collected a lot at that time, but it was based on the amount of pills that Su Luo would refine for her own people. At that time, she didn't think about exchanging points, so although there were many kinds of herbs, the quantity was not much. Seeing Su Luo's expression, Bei Chenying understood clearly. He clenched his fist and couldn't conceal his excitement. It doesn't matter. We can issue a mission. Issue a mission? Su Luo was puzzled and looked to Bei Chenying. At this time, Ziyan interjected. Yes. Issue a mission. Issue the task of acquiring medicinal herbs. Speaking of this topic, Ziyan was also excited. Of course, it's better than if we collect it by ourselves. It is the most cost-effective. So we can use this time to do more meaningful things, such as selling pills. And you should know that for these people in inner city, it was easy to come and go to the Blood Mist Forest, so the level of the mission will not be high, so the reward will not cost us too much resources. Su Luo nodded and said yes. Motion Ziyan to continue. Ziyan continued to blaze in excitement. What are the most common activities of these people in Purgatory City? Fighting. So what do they need the most? Medicinal pills. And what is the most scarce in Purgatory City? Apothecary. A master apothecary can totally walk across Purgatory City. You don't know? Tino, master-grade pills is a scarce resource in the inner city, and it will be snatched up as soon as it appears. So, Su Luo laughed like a sly little fox. So, we can issue a mission with a small amount of reward, in exchange for a large amount of medicinal materials, and after refining them into master-grade pills, and set the pills to be purchased with points. A medicinal pills shop. A bottle of master-grade pills that can be sold for 200 points a bottle. Now the question is Ziyan looked at Su Luo deeply. How many bottles of pills can you make in a day? Right, if you are slow in refining, then this business. After all, you only have 7 days off. Su Luo took a deep breath and stood up with a slap the table. Don't worry. As long as there are enough herbs, there would be many pills. Su Luo was not boasting. In fact, as her proficiency in refining pills was getting higher and higher, and her experience value is increasing, now she had greatly reduced the time of refining the pills. Su Luo suggested. Although Ziyan said it well, but can these pills be sold in the end? They haven't been tested in practice. Today is better than another. Let's take out these pills and try them today? Okay. Everyone agreed in unison. Ziyan explained the location of the inner city and the distribution of business districts. There is a Taobao Street in Purgatory City, which is different from the shop business. Thi is a free people's market, and the flow of people is still large. Go there. Su Luo made a decision. However, before she set off, Su Luo slightly raised her lips. She did not forget the things that Lu Yi and Qing Yi wanted to do to them. Take advantage of someone's misfortune. Chapter 1979. Huge amount of points 7. Su Luo could predict that the business of the medicinal pills would be very good, but there was a long distance from Blue Cloud Peak. If Qing Yi and other people organize a robbery on the road, this problem would be serious. Even if it was not Qing Yi, there would be others. After all, there were so many points, and it could easily make people jealous. There was a cunning curve in Su Luo's eyes, because she thought of a person who she thought could be their bodyguard for a while. Senior brother Luo. Younger sister made a bottle of spirit-repairing pills for you. Is senior brother Luo free to come here and take it today? Su Luo held the communication jade and sent the message to Luo Yichen. Ziyan was speechless for a few moments. Su Luo really made use of people and was not soft-hearted. Soon Luo Yichen returned the message, okay. A simple word, but gave a positive answer. With Luo Yichen as the super bodyguard, what are we afraid of? Go. Su Luo raised her hand and head to the Taobao Street with great vigor. When Su Luo arrived at Taobao Street, she found that there were not many people here. Only a few people passed by occasionally, which was sparse. Su Luo frowned. There are too few people. With a wave of her hand, Ziyan said with a great spirit, now no one knows that we sell master-grade pills. Just wait and see. Our business will not go wrong. Let's do it. Set up a stall. Su Luo nodded. It was convenient. Because it was a free stall, there were only a few stalls, and occasionally one would be empty. Su Luo walked along the road, saw a stall of suitable size, and quickly occupied it. Then Su Luo waved her hands, and tables and chairs came out of her space automatically. Therefore, storage space was really an essential treasure for home or travel. Su Luo did not foolishly put all the pills out in one go. That would not only be easy to cause trouble, but would also reduce the value of the pills, which was what was called the rarer something is, the greater its value would be. Su Luo took out a bottle of pills one after another, arranged them in a long row. Then several people who have never done business sit down and chat. Because there were few stalls that sell pills in Purgatory City, and generally when there is one, and they would be wrapped up pretty quickly. The market of medicinal pilla had always been in short supply. There was no market price. The several people didn't shout, just chatted with each other. But soon a customer came. This was a bearded uncle, about 30 years old, tough and stocky build. At a glance he was a powerful warrior. The bearded uncle's abdomen was wrapped gauze, and there was a little blood on it. It could be seen that the wound had not healed yet. Do you have elite blood clotting pills? The bearded uncle's eyes swept over the row of pills, but when he saw those porcelain bottles, he frowned slightly. These coarse porcelain bottles look inferior. They are not the lowest grade elementary pills, right? The bearded uncle had an impulse to leave. Ziyan smiled and stepped forward. Elite blood clotting pills? We don't sell elite blood clotting pills. All of them are master grade pills, okay? If we have the skill of a master apothecary, would we still make elite grade pills? We won't do such a stupid thing, Ziyan silently criticized in her heart. However, the bearded uncle's mental activity was completely opposite to of Ziyan's, so the misunderstanding in the dialogue between the two people was getting deeper and deeper. Chapter 1980. Huge amount of points 8 they didn't even have elite blood clotting pills, and they still have the nerve to sell it in Purgatory City? But because medicinal pills was really hard to find, and the bearded uncle just happened to need it, he could only frown helplessly and lowered the standard. Then is there any advanced blood clotting pills? Ziyan looked at the bearded uncle as if he was a fool. Advanced blood clotting pills? Who would have that? The bearded uncle was about to cry. He really needed it, Didn't they see the blood spreading out, and the clothes on his abdomen was soaked in red? The bearded uncle took a deep breath, told himself not to be angry, and then stared at Ziyan. What about intermediate blood clotting pills? There should be one, right? If there was nothing again, the bearded uncle really had an impulse to smash the stall. Who would have imagined that? Ziyan waved her hand. Uncle, your request is we really don't have the pills you want. What are you doing? Aren't you here to sell pills? You don't even have intermediate blood clotting pills, so what pills do you sell? It wanna? TB, the so-called acne medicine from the outside, right? Eh? The bearded uncle became angry and roared at Ziyan. Looking at the bearded uncle's red eyes, angry expression, and trembling body, Su Luo felt it was necessary to come out and explain the misunderstanding. Ziyan previously thought that the bearded uncle wanted to buy cheap pills, and the bearded uncle thought it was absolutely impossible to have master pills in this stall. So the two of them misunderstood each other. Su Luo picked up a coarse porcelain bottle, opened the cork of the bottle, then handed it to the bearded uncle, smiled and said, "We have no elementary pills, no intermediate pills, no advanced pills, no elite pills in our stall." Seeing that the bearded uncle was about to get angry again, Su Luo shoved the pills into his hand at the right time and said with a smile, "We only sell master-grade pills, why don't you try it?" Master-grade pills? The bearded uncle made a strange shout. At this moment he wanted to laugh, but because he was angry just now, the expression on his face hadn't adjusted, so his entire face seemed distorted. "Yes, we only sell master-grade pills." Su Luo repeated with a smile, then nodded and asked the bearded uncle to look at the bottle in his hand. But before the bearded uncle could see the porcelain bottle in his hand, he was surrounded by a lot of noise. Because just now his throat made a strange shout, many people were shocked. Master-grade pills? How long has it been since master-grade pills appeared in this street? In the past, even if it appeared, it would soon be rounded up, very fast. As a result, the news spread quickly, and more people came to Su Luo's stall. Looking at the stall surrounded by 3 circles inside and 3 circles outside, Su Luo smiled wryly and touched her nose. If she had known earlier that the words master-grade pills was so useful, she would have already told Bei Chening to shout loudly at earlier time. Why would she wait until now? But now many people were disappointed when they see these young women and young men. Does this stall really sell master-grade pills? That's what he said, but looking at these people, it doesn't seem like it. Is it really deceiving? I'll just say, how is it possible to be master-grade pills? How can it appear here? Hey Lita? Esko. Ai. Isna? This girl is Su Luo, who took the assessment of the genius training camp before? Damn. It's true. Does she really have master grade pills in her hands? Chapter 1981. Huge amount of points 9. Those people originally wanted to leave the place, but now stopped. Everyone's eyes were shining like the stars. Their eyes were looking very interested. Then someone urged the bearded uncle. Hey, don't you have a bottle in your hand? Hurry up and see is it master grade pills or not. Because Ziyan saw that the stall was being surrounded by a group of people, afraid that someone would take advantage of the situation to steal it, so she put away all the bottles. It was also because Ziyan's fast reaction. Otherwise, this situation would most likely happen. At this time, the bearded uncle became the source of explanation. The coarse porcelain bottle in the bearded uncle's arms became the focus of the whole scene. The bearded uncle firmly didn't believe that the lousy bottle contained master-grade pills, because the master-grade pills was very precious. How could the young girl on the opposite side just casually threw it to him, just like throwing candy? If it was a real master-grade pills, why didn't she nervous? Actually, how would the bearded uncle know that in Su Luo's mind, the status of these master-grade pills was really like candies? Who asked her to be able to get these pills very easily now? I don't believe that these young people could get master-grade pills. The bearded uncle poured a pill in the porcelain bottle into the palm of his hand. These fiery red pills were plump, sparkling with luster. And there were also a rich and mellow scent. Someone who had already knew what it was earlier shouted with excitement. Heavens! It is really master-grade pills. This is really master-grade blood-clotting pill. Then there was a burst of gasping sounds. Immediately afterwards, more people shouted. Because that's what it was. The bearded uncle was a little dumbfounded. He looked at Su Luo with confusion, and had a complicated look. This lousy bottle really contained master-grade pills? Su Luo smiled and looked back. One bottle cost 200 points. Would you like to buy it, uncle? Su Luo originally wanted to say 100 points, but the market reaction was somewhat beyond her expectations, so she decided to double the price. One should know that not everyone was like Lu Yi, had a good master to be the backer, so there were thousands of points in her hand that could be squandered. Middle and upper class people rarely come here to stroll. Most of them go to the business district. In fact, many people here were in the bottom class. They usually accumulate points little by little. It's very difficult to earn points, could barely support their cultivation. And there were only 3 in a bottle. Medicinal pills belong to consumable goods, and no one would buy it if it was too expensive. The bearded uncle's eyes sparkled as soon as he heard that a bottle only cost 200 points. Buy. I must buy it. The young girl did not raise the price, and even if she said it was 300 points, he would not hesitate to pay for them. So, Ziyan took out her silver token, and collected the bearded uncle's points. The bearded uncle was afraid that someone would attack him to get the pills, so he immediately slipped away with the pills in his arms, very quickly. Because the scene was a bit chaotic, no one noticed him. At this point, after the first transaction, it was officially opened. I want a bottle too, give me a bottle. I want 2 bottles. Give me 5 bottles. Many people held their most precious token in their daily life, and shouted at Su Luo vigorously, for fear that they would not be able to buy the pills if their voice was not loud enough. Chapter 1982. Ranking to money 1, because they all know that the amount of medicinal pills was definitely not much. It's just the so-called grab it fast while it lasts. If they were one step late, they really won't be able to buy it. Looking at the chaotic scene, Su Luo had both a sense of satisfaction and helplessness. Seeing the scene was bustling with noise and excitement, Su Luo quickly cleared her throat and said, "Everyone line up to buy. We will not sell to those who don't line up." Now it was the seller's market. Su Luo had the final say for everything. But there were also protests. "Little girl, in the end, how many bottles of pills do you have? Is it enough or not? You must not make me line up for a long time, but then you've already sold out. That is, little girl, how many bottles do you have there?" So one by one they shouted at Su Luo, very excited. Su Luo's eyes swept around the scene. Because it was still early, there were few people strolling in the Taobao street. Now there were only a few dozen people around her. So Su Luo waved her hand and said with great pride, 50 bottles in total, first come first served. Now you can line up. As soon as Su Luo's voice fell, there was a loud noise. Just now it was as busy as the food market. Now they had already formed a straight line. Then Su Luo and the others started the business. Bei Chening handed over the bottles. Ziyan was responsible for receiving the points. In fact, it was very easy to receive the points. Only need to join the other party's token with Ziyan's token, and then input the amount with a thought. Because the people in the queue were in good order, Bei Chening handed the bottles one by one, and Ziyan received the points. People always like to join the fun. Even the ordinary people here would be regarded as super strong if they were to go to the outside. Such a long line would not go without being noticed. Because Taobao Street hadn't been so busy for many years, this long line had attracted a lot of people's attention. They asked again and again, "Oh, it actually sell pills?" Then more and more people gathered, and the line grew longer. Although they had been repeatedly warned that there were only 50 bottles of pills, it could not stop everyone's fiery enthusiasm. Soon all 50 bottles of master pills were sold out. But Su Luo was stunned when she saw the long line behind her. Su Luo waved her hand. "All the pills have been sold out. We will close the stall today. Please buy early tomorrow." After the explanation was over, the group of people wanted to leave. But they were stopped by the excited crowd. "What time is tomorrow? How many bottles are there tomorrow?" "There will be more people tomorrow. 50 bottles are not enough, ah." For a while the crowd was excited, and they all surrounded Su Luo and didn't let her go, for fear that she would not come again. Su Luo did not see that selling things could make her so popular. For a while, she was speechless. Looking at their faces, Su Luo suddenly thought of the previous proposal, so she said to everyone, "If you want to get master-grade pills, there is another way besides buying it." For a moment, the boisterous crowd suddenly quieted down. "I need medicinal herbs, a large amount of medicinal herbs." You can collect the medicinal herbs, then you can exchange them for master-grade pills. I will issue this mission in the mission hall. There will be a specific list of the required herbs. Su Luo stood on the table, with a commander rank aura. After a quiet moment, the bustling noise broke out again. "Medicinal herbs? We can exchange the medicinal herbs for master-grade pills? Is this true? How could there be such a cheap thing in this world? That girl didn't lie to us, did she?" Chapter 1983. Ranking to Money 2. There are a lot of medicinal herbs in the Blood Mist Forest. In addition, there are also. This man seemed to realize that he said something he shouldn't. He immediately covered his mouth and slipped away quietly. Seeing everyone's skepticism, Su Luo said, "Now I'm going to the mission hall. If you don't believe it, you can follow me and watch us issue the mission with your own eyes." With that said, Su Luo took the lead and left. Bei Chening quickly followed. The crowd was boisterous. If one didn't follow closely, one would be pushed away in a moment. Truthfully, this was also the first time for Bei Chening to see that selling things could become so popular. It was really eye-opening. So, under Su Luo's lead, the crowd marched towards the mission hall. At the beginning, there were no more than 100 people. In the end, while they were on the way, a lot of people called out their friends. When Su Luo walked to the mission hall, there were almost 1,000 of people behind her. The guard of the mission hall watched such a large wave of people come in. Their faces turned a little pale. Their subconscious mind almost thought that this wave of people would come to seize the mission hall. At last, even the president of the mission union was alarmed, and he met them personally. The president was not young. He was about 50 or 60 years old. He looked serious and didn't look angry. Su Luo told him the mission, and even he was dumbfounded, and repeatedly confirmed. "You just said use medicinal herbs to exchange for master-grade pills?" Su Luo nodded, then took the brush and paper. She drew the pattern and wrote the names of the required herbs, listed the table and the estimated value. According to the value of the medicinal herbs, and the difficulty of obtaining them, Su Luo arranged a score table for them. For example, some herbs scored 5 points, some scored 10 points, and some scored 20 points. As long as they get 100 points, they could exchange for a master-grade pill. The president had lived for so many years, but had never seen such generosity as Su Luo, so he widened his eyes. Are you sure you have any kind of master-grade pills? Su Luo touched her chin and thought for a moment, then she said, there are many kinds of master-grade pills. I don't have much time to refine them one by one, so I'd better agree on 10 kinds. Blood-clotting pills, spirit restoration pills, rebirth of flesh pills. Su Luo not only announced 10 kinds, but also left the samples of each bottle to the president. Seeing Su Luo took out 10 bottles of samples at once, the president had nothing to say, and everyone believed it. So, before Su Luo and the others left, all of them already dispersed, because they were in a hurry to go out of the city to find medicinal herbs. At ordinary times, the Medicinal Pills Trade Union also accepted medicinal herbs, but the price was very low. Because they were exclusive to Purgatory City, one family enjoyed market dominance, so when everyone saw them, they occasionally collected them and exchanging it for some pocket money. But now it's different. Those herbs could be directly exchanged for master-grade pills, which makes everyone's blood boiling. For a time, the people of Purgatory City rushed to inform each other, and the news spread like the flu. Seeing those people quickly rushed out of the city, Su Luo scratched the back of her head and had a little headache. She said silently, I wonder if the pills refined tonight can pay for the cost of tomorrow's medicinal herbs. Only then did Su Luo realize that she treated it a little too lightly. Then what to do? You only have 6 days. They all looked at Su Luo. Don't worry about it, I can turn 6 days into 60 days. Su Luo waved her hand with a smile. Su Luo's words was true, but everyone didn't believe it. Chapter 1984. Ranking to Money 3. Leaving the mission hall, the group of people were ready to go back. But on the way, Su Luo had the feeling of being watched. However, the way back to the Blue Cloud Peak had to go through a secluded mountain road. Su Luo looked at the communication jade on her wrist, the corner of her mouth raised into a cold sneer. She also did not avoid the path, but followed the way she came. The speed was not slow. After a quarter of an hour, in a secluded place, a group of unexpected guests suddenly appeared. There was a ridiculing smile in her eyes. It seemed that trouble had come. Stop. A cold voice sounded in everyone's ears. Su Luo looked at the group of people with a smile. In this group of people, each and every one of them was tall, strong, and had a stocky build. At first glance they looked like a powerful warrior. There were 20 people, but she didn't know any of them. Who are you? Su Luo folded her hand, looked at them coldly. Loathsome girl, we are members of the medicine gang. The sturdy young man on the opposite side said with a sneer. Medicine gang? Su Luo raises her eyebrows. Ziyan hurriedly went to give information to Su Luo. Then Su Luo knew that it was the same medicinal pills trade union that gathered all the apothecary and monopolized the market of medicinal pills. These people were the hired thugs of the medicine gang. They deal with things that are difficult to deal with in person. Ziyan added. It's said that the leader of the medicine society is the top 3 expert in the dragon list of the genius training camp. So it's like this. Su Luo nodded slowly, then her red lips slightly hooked, coldly glanced at the group of people. What do you want? Without the permission of the medicine gang, who let you sell medicinal pills? Are you looking for death? The sturdy young man stared fiercely. Su Luo sneered. It's free to trade in Taobao Street. What is medicine gang? Why do we need our permission? Oh, brothers, did you hear that? Dare to despise our medicine gang, ha 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 dash. When the sturdy young man laughed, the group of people followed him and laughed, as if they heard the funniest joke in the world. Su Luo and the others frowned. Their faces were cold like the frost. They were in rage and ready to jump at their throat. Su Luo prevented their action with a wave of her hand. Then, she looked at the group of people on the opposite side with a smile. Don't you just want the points we earned today? To be honest, it's not that difficult. The several sturdy young men looked at each other. Could it be that this robbery so easy this time? Su Luo sneered. But you have to tell me, is the Bright Moon Hall involved in this matter? The sturdy young men blinked a few times, then blinked again. Although they didn't confirm it, they also didn't deny it. It really is them. Ziyan said angrily. Qingyi and Lu Yi, they didn't succeed last time, but they started again so quickly. I won't spare them next time I see them. Hey, have you done discussing it? 10,000 points, quickly take it out. The group of sturdy young men surrounded Su Luo and the others, approaching them step by step. There were more than 20 people in their group. The worst one was 10 ranked, and the highest one was commander ranked. It seemed that all of them had extraordinary strength. Su Luo and the others was totally not enough to beat them, so they were so arrogant. We have discussed it, these points. Su Luo smiled, but the voice hadn't fallen yet. Suddenly, a cold figure flew in. Chapter 1985, Ranking to Money 4. Senior Brother Luo, they want to rob my points. Su Luo's face changed very fast. A moment ago she was still smiling lightly, and now she immediately sobbed to complain about her condition. The person who came was none other than Luo Yichen that Su Luo had notified early in the morning. Luo Yichen was dressed in white, standing tall. His face was cold like the frost, his eyes were pitch black like the cold space, and his eyes were murderous. Luo, Luo, Luo. The sturdy young people's throats were like being strangled, staring at Luo Yichen. There's no word coming out. Luo Yichen flicked his sleeves and coldly snorted. Get lost. This group of sturdy young men looked at each other in dismay, not knowing whether they should obey or not, but when they looked up to see Luo Yichen's undisguised murderous intentions, the group of people turned around decisively and ran away with their tail between their legs. But they hadn't ran a few steps, but they heard a loud shout. Stop! So this group of people was like being hit on their acupuncture point, staying still on the spot, and not even dare to move. Luo Yichen deliberately exuded strong pressure from his body. Cold sweat rolled out on their backs, and soon soaked their back. Get back here. Luo Yichen's voice was as light as the wind, but in these people's ears, it was like thunder in the clear sky. They were trembling with fear and anxiety. The faces of the group of sturdy young men were glum, and they slowly moved back step by step and turned around. Luo Yichen and their leader were the top 3 experts in the dragon list. They simply did not dare to offend, okay? Luo Yichen's both hands were on his back. His handsome and cold face was very serious. His eyes were cold and murderous. These people, your medicine gang, insist on making things difficult? Luo Yichen's tone was ice cold. How could the sturdy young man dare to admit it? Didn't he see the mighty Luo's murderous look? If he dares to admit that, then his head would probably be removed from his neck at the next moment. So just now he looked like he was the overlord who was the first in heaven. Now in front of Luo Yichen, he was as timid as a mouse when it saw a cat. He waved his hands and repeatedly denied. No, absolutely not. How could we dare to embarrass senior brother Luo's friend? Friend. Luo Yichen pondered these words carefully. But at this moment, the sturdy young man was panicked. Not a friend, could it be? Just at the moment when the sturdy young man was in doubt, Luo Yichen said coldly, remember your words, now you can get lost. Yes, 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 we'll get lost, we'll get lost. The young men did not dare to stay here. They ran at lightning speed one by one. The dust was flying behind them. For a moment, there was silence all around. Su Luo's mind was sluggish for a moment. She called Luo Yichen to help fight the group, but what she didn't expect was that Luo Yichen's power was so strong, could scare away the fierce people with only a few words. Senior brother Luo, senior brother Luo. Su Luo felt that the impression of Luo Yichen in her mind has been refreshed. It was necessary for her to understand him again. This thick thigh must be hugged firmly. Ah. Luo Yichen patted Su Luo's head unhappily. You're dumbfounded? Senior brother Luo is so awesome. Su Luo's black and white eyes were clear, and shining like the stars in the sky. Luo Yichen suddenly smiled, rubbing Su Luo's head. This kind of thing is also worth for you to make a fuss. It can clearly be seen that you are really as bad as Master said. Master. There was a big question mark on Su Luo's head. Senior brother Luo's master. Who is it? Why did she suddenly have a hunch? Chapter 1986. Ranking to money 5. Luo Yichen glanced at Su Luo unhappily, but he didn't give her the answer. His line of sight fell on Su Luo's communication jade. Su Luo suddenly felt a little embarrassed. In fact, in just 2 days, she used Luo Yichen twice. If it was someone else, it would be okay. But it was obvious that Luo Yichen was very prestigious in Purgatory City. If she only saw through it but didn't unravel it, she was going to use Luo Yichen several times in the future. Su Luo thought that it was a little embarrassing. Luo Yichen spoke at this time. If you get into trouble again later. Luo Yichen's cold eyes fell on Su Luo's face, and Su Luo felt more ashamed and uneasy in her heart. Just when she was ready to confess, Luo Yichen continued to say, "Anytime, let me know." With these words, Luo Yichen's figure disappeared. As mysterious as his sudden arrival. What a great strength. Ziyan sighed with emotion. Luo Beichening frowned. I always feel something doesn't feel right with this Luo Yichen. Su Luo rarely agreed with Beichening, and nodded. In fact, I also think he is very strange. Especially for her, she felt it was quite weird. There was no good without any rhyme or reason in this world. Inevitably, there would be some reasons behind it. She just didn't know what is Luo Yichen's reason. Su Luo waved her hand. But Luo Yichen doesn't seem like he's against me. Of course he's not against you. Beichen stared unhappily at Su Luo. He thought in his mind. He simply has other intention to you. Thinking of this, Beichening felt irritated. He doesn't know where Nangong went. His wife is about to be abducted. When is he coming back? Su Luo didn't think about that. She just had a feeling that Luo Yichen seemed to have been ordered to protect her. With Luo Yichen's open protection, the medicine gang would never dare to find trouble to Su Luo again. After returning to Blue Cloud Peak, Su Luo immediately shut herself into the room. Time, every minute and every second was precious. Su Luo did not want to waste it. Since 10 days in her space was equivalent to 1 day in the outside, Su Luo still had some time. There were many medicinal herbs in her space, but Su Luo knew that they would be used up soon. Time waits for no one. Su Luo put the variant acacia tree to help her pick out all the medicinal herbs needed to refine each pill, and arrange the herbs separately, so her efficiency would be much greater. Open the medicinal cauldron, put the herbs in sequence, and release the flame of Yin Luo Red Lotus. Within the space, Su Luo had been repeating this action over and over again in the past 10 days. Although it was dull, tedious, and also exhausting, Su Luo was very happy. As long as she thought that a large amount of points she rake in, how could she be unhappy? 10 days later, Su Luo's door opened. Ziyan and the others had been waiting nervously outside the door. For Su Luo, it had been 10 days, but for Ziyan, it was only 1 night. Seeing Su Luo's pale face, Ziyan looked at Su Luo with distress and concern. If you're tired, you should refine less. After all, it's only 1 night. Su Luo smiled happily. With a wave of her hand, a sack appeared in Ziyan's arms. She yawned. I'm so sleepy. Do you have breakfast? With that, she went to the dining room with a yawn. Chapter 1987. Ranking to money 6. Su Luo hadn't eaten rice for 10 days. No wonder she was so hungry like this. Seeing Su Luo turned and walked away, Ziyan was somewhat doubtful. She lifted the sack in her hand. It seems that the sack has some weight. What's in it? Of course, Ziyan certainly wouldn't think about medicinal pills, because just in 1 night's time, even if she fantasized, she also didn't dare to imagine that Su Luo could make so many pills. But when she opened the sack, she suddenly flabbergasted. Her whole body was standing there motionless like she was being struck by a thunder, dumbfounded. As soon as Beichening saw it, he was anxious and shook Ziyan quickly. Wake up quickly, what's going on? Ziyan put the sack directly into Beichening's arms. Her eyes were dull. Look at it yourself. Oh. Beichening looked at the opening of the sack obediently. Then like Ziyan he was stunned. This. Beichening even took 3 breaths in succession before suppressing his surprise. Then he raised his eyes and looked at Ziyan. At this time, they have one more word to label Su Luo, evildoer. To be able to refine master-grade pills like that in just 1 short night. What other explanation could there be except evildoer? Not only evildoer, but also super evildoer, okay? Did she still let other apothecary live? The time needed for other master apothecary to refine a furnace of pills was at least a few hours, but after few hours, the most they could make was furnace of medicinal pills. But Su Luo, 1 sack a night. Bei Qining and Ziyan squatted on the ground and started counting. Many thousands later, the two people looked up at the same time. Ziyan asked, "Could it be that Luo Luo's time is truly different from us? How is it possible? Don't you know that Luo Luo has always told lies as truth?" Bei Qining laughed. If there's one thing in this world that was fair, it was the time. Time was the true equality of all living things. No one could make 1 second longer, no one could also make 1 second shorter. But how could Bei Qining know? Su Luo was truly favored. She really capable to treat 1 day as 10 days. After breakfast, several people walked towards the mission hall with sacks on their shoulders. Although they really want to sell them for points, but because they released the acquisition mission in the mission hall, they can't not pay the rewards, right? So they would not go to Taobao Street to set up a stall. First, they would go to the mission hall to pay the rewards. Because she earned 20,000 points yesterday, Su Luo did not saying anything further, and directly sent Lan Xian and Anya Ming to the elite training room. Going in 1 day earlier, their strength will increase by 1 point. After all, with their current strength, they belong to the lowest rank in Purgatory City. Su Luo, Ziyan and Bei Qining carried the sacks and went to the mission hall. They carried the sacks directly without any concealment. Although a lot of people saw them on the way, who would have thought that what was contained in the lousy sacks was master-grade pills? After all, every master pill was precious. Who would have thought it would be packed in a sack? Therefore, these people entered the mission hall unimpeded. At this time, someone ran to call for the president, but who would have knows? The president was avoiding it. At this time he was not in. Su Luo slightly turned her head, wanted to understand. Chapter 1988. Ranking to Money 7. The president must have seen a lot of people coming to hand over mission, but he was certain that she could not pay the rewards, so he simply go out to avoid it. Su Luo smiled and put the sack on the counter. Because the sack hadn't been used all the year round, it had accumulated dust. At this time the dust fell down. Cough cough dash. When the vice president was pushed in by someone, he just happened to run into this moment, and couldn't help coughing loudly. By this time the crowd around was already a little angry. "Miss Su, why are you here now? You can't pay for it, can you afford the revenge?" As a matter of fact, she was an hour late. Because she was a little bit unable to control the time when she was refining the pills. "Miss Su, you should keep your promise. I have handed in 100 points. Miss Su, I have handed in 200 points. I want a master-grade blood-clotting pill. And a master-grade spirit restoration pill. You can't cheat. For a time, Su Luo was surrounded by these people, and so crowded that not even a drop of water could leak out. Instead of being angry, Su Luo smiled, looking around, and she found that there were so many people coming today, crowding the spacious mission hall. Fearing that she was too short to be seen by everyone, Su Luo directly stepped on the chair and stepped on the table, waving her hand. "Everyone quiet. As long as the mission is completed, the master-grade pills is guaranteed to be enough." So Su Luo picked up the sack, patted vigorously. They all in a sack. Everyone was suddenly dumbfounded. Of course, Su Luo's voice was clear and decisive. "When you have handed in the mission, hurry to line up. The earlier you line up, the faster you will get paid." As soon as Su Luo's words came out, everyone looked at the sack. Although they were half believing and half doubting, they were still line up very quickly. Many of these people that were lining up today were the one who bought medicinal pills from Su Luo yesterday. After they took the pills back yesterday and tried it a little bit, they knew that the pill was very effective. Although it was the same master-grade pill, there were also levels. Su Luo's pills were superior. In front of everyone, Su Luai opened the sack and showed it to everyone. This visual effect was really shocking. Looking at the neat rows of coarse porcelain bottles, everyone was stunned, then disbelief, and then salivating. That many bottles were all master-grade pills? It isn't exaggerating? When will the master-grade pills be sold? However, with the guarantee of master-grade pills, everyone handed in the mission very quickly, because they were eager to exchange for the pills, and then quickly rushed to the outer city again. When they were exchanging the pills, there was a lot of noise around. From time to time, the following dialogue occurred. Hey Oldly, I only have 160 points, lend me 40 points. Old Zhao, I have 280 points. It would be better if you lend me 20 points. Little Wang, why don't we get together and round up a whole number and exchange for the pills? Later, older brother will exchange it to you according to the points? The normally quiet mission hall was now as noisy as a vegetable market. The people who got the pills were in high spirits, while those who didn't get enough points were frustrated. They looked at Su Luo with expectant eyes. Su Luo was helpless and could only give a promise. This mission will be issued for 6 days in total, and there will be 5 days left. Please make the best use of the time. Chapter 1989, Ranking to Money, 8. All of a sudden, everyone was excited. Because they thought that this mission would be cancelled. Who would have thought that there would be 5 days left? Wow. There's actually more? Brother, why don't we join together? Otherwise, if we have painstakingly gathered the medicinal herbs, but then taken by other people, wouldn't that be miserable? That makes sense. Then let's form a group together, but the 2 us is definitely not enough. It would be better if we invite Old Third. This way it would be safer. Yes, now that we have medicinal pills, our lives are guaranteed. Why don't we go to the northern desert this time? The value of the herbs is very high. For a while everyone was not excited. They seriously tried to find their good friends, and formed a group of 2 or 3. Although a group of people had left, but there were more people squeezing towards the mission hall, because they saw that Su Luo still had a lot. After all, on the first day due to trust there were not many people going out to do the mission of gathering medicinal herbs, so there were many pills left. Girl, don't you still have pills? Do you sell them or not? Someone asked out loud. Most of the people who came to the mission hall earned points by doing missions. There was a great demand for pills. Su Luo originally wanted to bring these medicinal pills to Taobao Street, but listening to his question, her footsteps stopped. There should be no difference between selling on Taobao Street and selling it here, right? Su Luo thought and nodded. Sell. As long as you have enough points, of course I will sell them. The points earned before had all been given to Lan Xian for 2 people's tuition fees. Now Su Luo was cleaner than being robbed. As soon as they heard that Su Luo was going to sell pills on the spot, many people swarmed in, and almost exploding the scene. Even the people in front of the counter who were selecting a mission. They all left the mission list and squeezed towards Su Luo. Although the crowd was surging, Su Luo did not raise the price of the pills. It was still 200 points a bottle, which was considered as a very common price. Just like yesterday, Ziyan was sweating and busy collecting points, but she enjoyed it. In less than a quarter of an hour, all the remaining 50 bottles of pills in Su Luo's sack were sold out. Many people who hadn't bought it felt very regretful. They were lingered around Su Luo, unwilling to leave. Su Luo could only tell them that even if they couldn't buy it, doing the task of gathering medicinal herbs was also a way to get the pills. In this way, these people reluctantly let Su Luo go. Su Luo took the herbs into her space, and then went back with Ziyan and Bei Chening, didn't stay a moment longer. Because for her now, every moment was very important. This time, when they went back, the 3 people's footsteps were very relaxed. The medicine gang didn't come to look for Su Luo again. Lu Yi and Qing Yi didn't show up. The 3 people went back to Blue Cloud Peak unimpeded. After returning to Blue Cloud Peak, Su Luo once again hurriedly shut the door of her room and began to get busy. Because of the increase in her proficiency and experience, the refining speed of Su Luo was getting faster and faster. By the next day, Su Luo had already refined 150 bottles of medicinal pills and could no longer be packed in one sack. In order to make the best use of the time, Su Luo did not go in person this time, but let Ziyan and Bei Chening go there. After thinking about it, Su Luo was still a little worried, so she asked Qing Feng to accompany them. But 1 hour later, Ziyan returned. Su Luo happened to have just finished refining 2 furnaces. She came out to see Ziyin, and they asked with concern, "How is it? No one make things difficult for you on the way, right?" Chapter 1990. Great Fortune 9. Ziyin proudly smiled. "You can rest assured. Now no one will mock us, and no one dares to rob us. 1 is because of Qingfeng, and Qingfeng is first elder. 2 is..." Ziyin stretched her last word and smiled like a sly fox. "You don't even know it, but now you can now become the most prominent person in Purgatory City. Even if we don't take any protective measures, those people will take initiative to protect us." Su Luo had to admit what Ziyin said was right. The people who put the task up would protect her. Nothing was better than that. Su Luo could refine medicine with peace of mind. 5 days passed. The past few days, Su Luo had made a huge profit and collected a huge amount of money. That night, the task from the mission hall had been fulfilled, so Su Luo could finally stop refining elixir. The last few days she had been madly refining elixir, sitting in front of elixir cauldron day and night. Thanks to that, Su Luo's cultivation had greatly improved, and her affinity with the fire attribute had also been greatly increased. The commander rank is divided into 3 levels: lower, intermediate, and advanced. In addition, each level was broken into stars. If you possessed 3 or less stars, you were in the lower level. Intermediate level was from 4 to 6 stars, and the advanced level was from 7 to 9 stars. 10 days ago, Su Luo had ascended to commander lower rank. However, after the last 7 days and nights of refining elixir, the spiritual aura in her body kept transforming, resulting from restoration and exhaustion, again and again. Su Luo felt that the purity of her spiritual aura had actually improved, which also meant that her cultivation had grown. Now she was at 2 stars, but Su Luo believed that she would ascend again soon, in this genius training camp. After dinner, several people surrounded Su Luo's room. "Come on. Let's count how many points you have earned in the past few days." Su Luo greeted Ziyin. Therefore Ziyin began her report. "The first day, the 50 bottles gave me 10,000 points. Adding them with the previous points, the total is 20,000. However, these points were all spent on Lan Xian and on Yeming. Second day, except for the mission outside, there were still 50 bottles left, so I sold them for another 10,000. The third day, sold for 20,000. The fourth day, sold for 30,000. The fifth day, I still sold for 30,000. I also collected several top-grade spirit herbs, which will be used for ascending to the elite apothecary class in the future. On the sixth day, I sold for 30,000, which is slightly equivalent to the cost of top-grade elixir herbs. Today is the last day. Before other people came, I sold more for 50,000 points. Totally, apart from 7 top-grade spirit herbs, our harvest is 170,000 points. Yay! Su Luo cheerfully clapped. At the beginning, Su Luo just tried to sell it. No one thought that she would earn so many points after 7 days. In Purgatory City, wasn't having 170,000 points considered being rich? Su Luo happily thought in her heart. Ziyin also couldn't hide her excitement and suggested, "Can we keep doing this kind of business?" Points in Purgatory City were equivalent to currency. Many people used these points to trade for hidden cultivation books, spirit stones, weapons, equipment. As long as there were enough points, they could buy anything. Chapter 1991. Great Fortune 10. Just think about it, the elixir competition was crazy this time. In a short span of 7 days, how much elixirs did Su Luo refine? The entire medical board might not be able to produce so many master apothecary elixirs within 7 years. Other people's elixirs were seen as very delicate, but Su Luo, that observation was just based on calculation, but the efficiency couldn't be compared. The elixir herbs were very expensive, and it was very difficult to sell to others on such a large scale to collect money again. However, it is still possible to sell this once in a while. We are not in a hurry. Anyway, these 170,000 points will last us a long time. Su Luo began distributing points. Take out the tuition fees for the two of you first, total of 40,000. We will evenly share the remaining 130,000 points. Although Lan Xing and An Yiming went to the elite training room, they still need a lot of points if they want to improve even more. Su Luo knew it was difficult for them to make rapid progress in a short period of time, so she would use the points carefully. The best body strengthening training room, best elixir refining room, best cultivation room. Everything must be the best. Anyway, she had points, and Xian and Beichening were also the same. Therefore, with the remaining 130,000 points, Su Luo gave 30,000 points to each person. Wouldn't you only have 10,000 points left? It is you who worked hard this time, so this is not enough for you. Ziyan urgently waved her hand. For the sake of finding hundreds of points, other people would become brothers or sworn enemies, and father and son could betray each other. However, Su Luo worked so hard to get these points, yet she ended up with the least. Ziyan couldn't bear it. However, Su Luo was very determined this time, and her eyes seriously looked at Ziyan. When I enter this genius training camp later, I don't know when I will be able to come out, and I don't have a way to communicate. I won't know your situation. For a while, you will only be able to rely on yourself. With these points, even if other people bully you, you could use these points to smack them down, or even could hire assassins to kill them. In short, I still can earn points again. You guys, however, are in a different situation. If I'm not here anymore, there is nothing for you. Remember, you must protect yourself and grow stronger. When it comes to the matter of earning points, this is not a problem at all. So try to spend as much as you can, okay? Ziyan's eyes moistened. Everyone could save their earnings, but they weren't afraid to give up the points for her. It was enough to have such a true friend in this life. Ziyan hugged Su Luo and whispered firmly in her ear. Relax, you can rest assured that we will enter the genius training camp next time. I will be waiting for you. Su Luo patted her shoulder with a grin. Su Luo would enter the genius training camp tomorrow, and they didn't know when they would meet in the future. Nobody slept a wink and instead talked all night long. They talked about life, ideals and gossip. In the end, Beichening frowned and finally said, Luo Luo, that Luo Yichen, don't be too close to him. Nangong will be unhappy. Su Luo suddenly smiled. She knew what Beichening meant, so she smiled and promised. I know. Unless life and death is in front of my eyes, I won't go looking for him. Chapter 1992, Genius Training Camp, 1. The first elder came in person to accompany her. With how much respect she was being given, the Genius Training Camp's managers did not dare neglect her. When Su Luo arrived, the personnel of Genius Training Camp hurriedly came out, saw the first elder, and suddenly became flattered. Afterwards, he then looked into Su Luo's eyes, which were distinctly different. Su Luo was handed over to Manager Li, and then the first elder left with a smile. The Genius Training Camp was located in the deepest part of the Jingshan Mountain. The training camp was inside, and the spirit beasts ran wild on the outside of the mountain. Therefore, the new disciples did not dare to go back to the Purgatory City unless there were a senior with them. Huge clouds and mist surrounded the mountains. The closest mountain to Su Luo looked smallest, but in terms of size, it was 10 times the size of the Himalayas on Earth. Manager Li carried her as he flew to the mountainside. Su Luo suddenly had a bad feeling. When she looked down midair before, she found that the mountains and buildings in the other places were elegant and exquisite with all kinds of facilities. However, the place she would be staying at, the mountain base, is where you will live for a long time, Manager Li said with a kind smile. Su Luo glanced around. At the top of the mountain, mansions were built, but her villa was plain and simple, with no extra decoration. Compared with other buildings in other peaks that Su Luo just saw, the difference was like the sky and earth, like the U.S. White House versus a beggar den. Su Luo frowned. Why here? Su Luo didn't need many specifications, but the houses were too close together. This place was not a suitable place for her cultivation. So Su Luo was not satisfied with this arrangement. Manager Li smiled. If the first elder did not personally send her and speak highly of her, Li Guancher would not have been willing to take care of a person who had just ascended to commander rank. However, Manager Li patiently explained to Su Luo. Miss Su doesn't know. New disciples who have just entered here will live here at the beginning. Some people lived here for a while, and improved their cultivation before they could move away. However, some people have lived here for countless years and were still struggling here, so whether you can move away from here depends on your own efforts. What are the criteria? Su Luo frowningly asked. The dragon list. As long as you place in the top 300 of the dragon list, you can move to the mountain in front of you. In that district, everyone's spaces are at least 10 miles apart. Oh right. It's called Xiao Mountain. Manager Li kindly continued to give information to Su Luo about the genius training camp. For the top 200, the living environments are even better. Every person is at least 100 miles apart. The name of the mountain is Zhongyou Mountain. Everyone occupies a certain mountain range, until you reach the top 10 people on the dragon list. Manager Li was envious. Being able to reach the top 10 of the dragon list was already amazing. Therefore, before the assessment of the dragon list, Miss Su must endure and live here for the time being. Although Manager Li was polite, at the bottom of his heart, he felt that Su Luo would be stuck in this mountainside for a long time. Chapter 1993. Genius Training Camp. 2. Su Luo just glanced at Manager Li and saw that he didn't approve of her strength. She didn't rush to display her strength, she just smiled faintly. When is the dragon list assessment? At the end of every month. Manager Li looked regretful. Now it's just the beginning of the month, still some time till the month ends. In other words, Su Luo would have to stay here for at least a month. Su Luo looked around and knitted her eyebrows. It wasn't difficult to live in the townhouse. The only serious issue was that there were many strange people living here. There was someone who kept banging his head against the mountain wall. Not far away, someone jumped down from the mountain peak to the foot of the mountain, and then jumped back up. What was more ridiculous was that there was also a person who kept cutting her own wrists with a blade. She would cut, wait for the blood to coagulate, and then cut again, over and over. Who were these people? Su Luo held her forehead in hopelessness. In the coming month, she would have to live with these bunch of weirdos. It indeed felt really strange and creepy when she thought about it. Manager Li looked at these bunch of weirdos and sighed. The pressure of Genius Training Camp is so great that it drives people crazy every year. These are only a few of them, girl. You have to work hard. Saying that, Manager Li walked away with an enigmatic smile. Su Luo was left alone with this group of weirdos. Su Luo had visually inspected the townhouse and found at least hundreds of rooms full of strangers. She thought to herself, wouldn't she have to live with hundreds of weirdos? Anyway, Su Luo glanced around and found that all the people who came out of their rooms were not normal people. Su Luo had no interest in talking with them, so she went straight to her own quarters. The place was at least clean and had all the things that should have been there. There was no need for Su Luo to worry about. If there's something distinctive, it was the screen, an optical tablet, on the table. It looked something similar to an optical computer. After fumbling for a while, Su Luo finally found the switch and turned it on. In front of the desk, a bright blue and white light shone on Su Luo's face, showing her cheeks flushed with excitement. After entering the Genius Training Camp, Su Luo expressed her excitement for the first time. There was a lot of information on the light brain. But what Su Luo was most interested in was the point exchange list. In this list, Su Luo found many things that she coveted. S-class full set of soft armor. Exchange for 50,000 points. There was also the second volume of the Spirit Dance Step that Su Luo had been searching for a long time. At the beginning, Su Luo had taken a lot of effort to steal the first volume of the Spirit Dance Steps from the royal palace of the Western Jin dynasty. However, the second volume was never found and her Spirit Dance Step stagnated. But now, this secret collection was lying on the exchange list. 10,000 points. It only took 10,000 points to exchange for the second volume of the Spirit Dance Steps. Did she want to exchange it? Su Luo scratched her ear and cheek, hesitating. It was like going shopping and seeing the clothes that you really liked. Grass grew in your heart. If you don't buy them, then your heart would itch. No. No way. Su Luo slapped herself on the head to bring herself together. Although she made a lot of points before, she only had 10,000 points on hand. If she bought the second volume of the Spirit Dance Steps, she would become a pauper. Su Luo restrained her heart that was getting distracted with great difficulty, and opened the second page of the point exchange list with trembling hands. Chapter 1994. Genius Training Camp 3. Oh ha? Su Luo covered her face with her hands and almost jumped up excitedly. No wonder everyone wanted to enter the Genius Training Camp. Apart from anything else, just this points exchanging alone made her fall in love. Look at this page. Weapon Enhancement Gem. Su Luo always wanted to strengthen her Chungying sword and enhance its power, but she hadn't been able to find the gem. Now, the gem was obediently stayed in the training camp storehouse, get dusty and waiting for her to exchange it. Points. Now Su Luo wished she could grow 100,000 hands and 100,000 more medicinal cauldron, and used an assembly line to produce pills and then sell them. She had a lot of treasure that she wanted to exchange, and her heart hurts. No hurry, there will be more opportunities in the future. Su Luo looked at the diamond card that multiplied point by 5 in her hand, and confidently admonished herself. It was not until this moment that she realized what kind of treasure the city master had given her. Just as Su Luo was flipping through a great variety of valuable things from the points exchange list, and her little face was red with excitement, suddenly there was a pounding sound from next door. Dong, dong, dong. Mechanical and regular, just like rain hitting the ground. Su Luo covered her head in headache. Heavens, how do people live here? How could they cultivate in peace? I really want to move out soon. There's a document in the light brain that introduced the entire Genius Training Camp. Su Luo quickly reads about the accommodation. Although Manager Li told her a few things, but it was not as detailed as this. The mountain where Su Luo now lived in was called Bottom Mountain. In the whole Genius Training Camp, now there were thousands of disciples studying here. Except for the top 300 of the dragon list, the rest of the people were all crammed in the Bottom Mountain. This Bottom Mountain, in the Genius Training Camp, was considered the abandoned one. Su Luo had to go through all kinds of hardships to get in, and then found that she had been abandoned. That kind of complicated mood was not understandable to others. 200 to 300 candidates lived in Downstream Mountain, indicating that they were barely feasible. 100 to 200 candidates lived in Midstream Mountain. 50 to 100 candidates lived in the Upstream Mountain. In fact, after entering the 100, they had little status in the Genius Training Camp. The top 50 candidates were really top tier. 50 to 11, each had an independent mountain peak. As for the top 10, that was the real upper class. Everyone had an independent mountain range that was larger than the Bottom Mountain where thousands of people live. The entire guards and logistics were all complete, just like a small kingdom. In fact, the most important thing was, the higher the ranking, the closer they live to the core spiritual source of the Genius Training Camp, the more benefits they get. One had to know that it was because of that core spiritual source that the Genius Training Camp and Purgatory City existed. Although Su Luo didn't know how frightening the core spiritual source was, it was said that this was the reason that attracted countless assessment candidates to the Genius Training Camp through the difficult path. Su Luo hurriedly scanned all the information 10 lines at a glance. She had a high retentive memory and won't forget it easily. If she wanted to use it later, she could just get it out of her mind. In order to earn more points, Su Luo decided to go into the space and refine medicinal pills. Now she had a lot of herbs in her space. They were all spiritual herbs received from previous gathering mission, and she did nor have enough time to refine the spirit grasses. Chapter 1995, Genius Training Camp 4. At this time, there was a loud noise outside. Su Luo didn't want to pay attention to it, but because the noises outside were getting more and more noisy, she couldn't cultivate at all, so she could only go to see it gloomily. Through the transparent crystal glass, Su Luo could clearly see the scene outside. There was a fight outside. No, to be exact, it was a group beating one person. A group of ferocious people surrounded a young girl and beat her heavily. Every blow was earth-shaking. The young girl curled up on the ground and let the rain-like fist hit her. She didn't know how to resist at all. But she still did good, curled up, hands tightly wrapped around her head, not letting the head hurt. Seeing this scene, Su Luo's eyebrows slightly knitted. This was the genius training camp. Everyone only knew that the people who could come in, each person's innate skill was the genius of the genius, thinking that entering the genius training camp was the finish line. But this scene was stating the truth to Su Luo. In fact, entering the genius training camp was only the beginning, and there were countless of difficulties and obstacles waiting for her in the future. Seeing the petite young girl being beaten, and seeing the aggressive and fierce appearance of the leading girl, Su Luo only shook her head. She was not so old-fashioned and kind-hearted. The young girl didn't know how to resist it herself. Why should she make an unnecessary move? Su Luo ignored these troubles and wanted to turn around and leave to cultivate in the basement. But at this moment, suddenly, the young girl's body was picked up by the fierce girl, and then kicked forward heavily. The young girl seemed completely powerless to resist, and could only let that huge force hit her. The little girl seemed unable to resist at all, so she could only be let out by that huge force. There was a crash noise. The place where she landed was Su Luo's house. Su Luo frowned slightly. Was it unintentional or deliberate? At this time, the young girl had fainted, and the blood at the corners of her mouth flowed out quietly. Su Luo shook her head and didn't know what to say. At this moment, a knock on the door sounded loudly. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. The attitude of the person who knocked on the door was very unfriendly, and could even be called very bad. Su Luo frowned. She wanted to spend a month in this bottom mountain in a low profile, but obviously, these people wanted to torment her. One point of the transparent crystal glass was good. That is, Su Luo could see the scene outside, but the outside could not see the inside. It seems that today's trouble can't be avoided. Su Luo sneered, with a wave of her hand, and the door opened. The leading girl Hong Yi rushed in, pointing at Su Luo and scolded. Why did you open the door so slow? Do you still want to live? Su Luo's cold eyes shot towards Hong Yi. Hong Yi immediately felt as if her neck was being strangled, and felt a cold rising from the bottom of her feet, and spreading all over her body. Hong Yi was slightly stunned, and then she was furious. Hateful. A new loathsome girl dared to be unreasonable to her. Hong Yi rushed in and shouted at Su Luo. You quickly compensate with points. Su Luo looked at her, unable to understand. Compensate with points? Why? Su Luo asked curiously. Because of your window smashed my person. Hong Yi straightened her chest and said with a great confidence. Her pair of eyes looked at Su Luo with arrogance and contempt, as if Su Luo was just a little ant on the ground, letting her pinch and flatten it. Chapter 1996. Genius Training Camp 5. Su Luo was being so despised by her. After being inexplicably speechless, she thought it was ridiculous. She pointed to the gorgeous, blood-stained floor-to-ceiling window. Her voice was cold without any fluctuation. She asked lightly, You mean this window? Yes. Hong Yi knew it was unreasonable, but she was exceptionally calm. Hee. Su Luo's smile was full of meaning. She didn't complain about her windows getting dirty, but the other side complained that her windows had broken her person first. Su Luo suddenly remembered that when one slapped others, but the guilty party first accused the other person of hitting the guilty party's hands with the other person's face. It was really the same thing. Hong Yi saw Su Luo's face smiling vaguely. The calm in her eyes made people felt cold in the bottom of their heart. Would you compensate or not? Hong Yi shouted loudly. There were 5 or 6 people behind the girl. Therefore, her force was very sufficient. No compensation. Su Luo folded her hand and firmly refused. You actually won't compensate. The girl didn't expect that a newcomer would dare to be so arrogant in front of her. And suddenly she became even more angry. Her fingertips trembled and pointed at Su Luo. Good, no compensation, right? Very good, what's good? Su Luo looked at her with a smile. Brothers, she said, no compensation. What's to be done? Hong Yi smiled coldly at the little friends behind her. Don't compensate, then snatch it. Why waste so much time? This is not the first time we do this kind of thing. Why does senior sister Hong Yi have to ask this many times? In the bottom mountain, who dares to fight with our senior sister Hong Yi? Isn't that seeking death? 5 or 6 henchmen in the back made their comments. Hong Yi was extremely proud. She looked coldly at Su Luo. Did you hear that? Are you afraid? Su Luo stroked her forehead. How could she meet such a willful, unbridled, and stupid young lady? Su Luo wanted to let her off, but the young lady suddenly waved her hand and shouted. Go! Beat her down for this, miss. Very well. 5 or 6 henchmen instantly rushed toward Su Luo at an amazing speed. There was a chill in Su Luo's heart. Because there were 5 or 6 people, and the strength was not weak, so Su Luo did not dare to make it big. She directly used her space gravity. All of these people have never seen the space gravity. They didn't look at it for a while. They suddenly felt helpless as if they were sinking into the mud. All of a sudden, they felt that their strength had dropped 1 level in an instant. And Su Luo was waiting for this moment. One only saw her yellow dress rapidly moved like lightning, and only fragments of her could be seen on the ground. A series of clear and loud slaps sounded in the noisy room. Previously, each and every one of the henchmen were arrogant. But in a short while, they were beaten silly by Su Luo. They stood still and covered their swollen cheeks with one hand, wanted to cry but had no tears. At the same time, they all cursed in the heart. This girl is so fierce. Hong Yi was also stunned. She looked at Su Luo and those several silly geese. She couldn't react for a while. But she soon came back to her senses, pointing at the henchmen and cursed. You stupid pigs! What are you doing? Get into it, ah! Those group of silly pigs wanted to cry but had no tears. The other girl was so fast that they couldn't even touch a corner of her dress. How could they go on? Chapter 1997 Genius Training Camp 6. Miss she's odd. One of the henchmen complained. What's odd? Hong Yi asked with a sneer. She seems to be able to reduce our speed and strength. Utter rubbish. Hong Yi didn't believe it at all. Keeping dogs are better than keeping you bunch of idiots. You get out of the way, this miss will personally deal with it. With that, Hong Yi shook through her waist, and the whip inserted in her back suddenly appeared. You die, Hong Yi roared, and then rushed behind Su Luo's body. Su Luo's lips raised into a sneer. Just as the girl rushed 3 feet away from her body, Su Luo turned her hands. A little flame appeared on her right index finger. Just as the girl's whip was lashed toward Su Luo's face, the flames on Su Luo's fingers instantly turned into long and thin but turbulent fire snake, and suddenly rushed toward Hong Yi's neck. The girl just felt a sparks in front of her eyes. The whip had just been lashed, but she found that her whip had been burned into a piece of smoke and flew away. Just as she was frightened and furious, the fire snake fiercely wrapping itself around her neck. No, Hong Yi turned around and ran back. But the fire snake, as if it was clinging to her, pursued her relentlessly, unwilling to let go. Hong Yi was completely stupefied, because she knew how powerful this fire snake was. That whip was not an ordinary whip, but an ice-cold spirit whip. It had the energy that could control the fire attribute. However, only confronted it once, and it was already swallowed by this fire snake, which showed how terrible this fire snake was. If it catched up to her, how could she have a chance to live? Thinking of this, Hong Yi looked as pale as snow. She fully used 100% of her skill to escape. She wanted to run out, but by this time the door had already been closed by Su Lu. Where could she run? Therefore, the poor Hong Yi could only run away inside the room quickly. And behind her, the Yin Luo Red Lotus seemed to have a lot of fun. So much that it was unwilling to let go of her. Help! Help! Hong Yi could feel that the fire snake had jumped up her back, and was about to bite her neck. Whoa, I don't want to die. You bastards. Why haven't you come and saved me yet? Hong Yi was frightened, crying and shouting again. At this time, the henchmen came back to their senses, hesitated for a long time, and finally decided to save her. But the fire snake that turned into the Yin Luo Red Lotus was divided into 6 parts at once, and each one chased after every one of them. For a time, Bright yellow flames and people fleeing in disarray everywhere in the room. As long as they took a step slower, the Yin Luo red lotus would bite, and the bite wound would burn. The pain was not something that ordinary people could bear. But the space in the hall was pitifully small, so this group of people would bump into each other when they ran, and then fell and sprawled on their back, and then were bitten by the Yin Luo red lotus for several times. For a while, the hall was full of screams, and it was extremely miserable. What about Su Luo at this time? She was sitting in a cozy chair, her hands were high on the desk, holding a red fruit in her hand. She was watching the show and eating fruit at the same time, very comfortable. Because these people were using everything in their power to escape. All their spirit power was consumed very quickly, and soon would be exhausted. The screams were getting weaker and weaker. In the end, this group of people could no longer support themselves, and fell to the ground one by one. Chapter 1998. Genius Training Camp, 7. At this time, Su Luo had finished eating the red fruit and the ice grapes. She washed her hands with celestial spirit water, and took a silk handkerchief made of 1,000 years ice silk. Slowly and carefully, she wiped every finger clean. Then she put aside the handkerchief and stood up. With a wave of hands, the mischievous Yin Luo red lotus playfully wags its tail, restored the original state of its body, and a large fire lotus blossomed behind Su Luo's body. For a while, the hot temperature in the room dropped. But the pain of those people on the ground was not diminished. Seeing them like this, Su Luo also felt pity. Look at them one by one. When they first came in, they were still put on airs, but now, from top to bottom, one could scape ash out of their body, painted with black, no spot on the skin was in a good condition. Tut-tut, how painful is it? Su Luo squatted down, looked at the Hong Yi, and poked at the scorched spot on her face. Ah! Hong Yi screamed in pain. Do you have to be so cruel? Is it good to be bitten by the damned fire snake 3 times in a row? You said you didn't go to the good heaven. Why on earth were you rushing into hell instead? Do you have a special hobby and specifically came to seek abuse? Su Luo looked at them with a smile. In this battle, Su Luo didn't make much effort at all, and the group of people fell and hurt themselves, causing her no chance to show off. You. Seeing Su Luo, Hong Yi was frightened and angry as if she had just seen a ghost. Originally she wanted to bully a newcomer. She just wanted to rob some treasure, but who would have thought that this newcomer was not weak at all? On the contrary, she was the devil. What's with me? Do I look very terrible? Su Luo asked with a grin. You're dead. Older sister Wei won't let you go. Hong Yi turned away angrily. Older sister Wei? Who is that? Asked Su Luo with a laugh. Sister Wei, that was the female leader of this bottom mountain. If you offended us, it means you offended older sister Wei. Wait and see how you would die. Are you afraid? Hong Yi still looked as malicious as before, appeared to be fierce but cowardly in the heart, but her imposing manner seemed somewhat insufficient, which made her words very unconvincing. Yes, I'm afraid of death. What can I do? What should I do? Su Luo pretended to be afraid. Are you afraid? Since you are afraid, why haven't you let me go? Hong Yi's arrogance increased. Since this older sister Wei is so protective of you, let her come and redeem you. Su Luo stood up with a faint smile, and told the pitch-black henchman, Go tell older sister Wei to come over and bring 100,000 points. Otherwise humph. After saying that, Su Luo stood up and didn't wait for them to react, kicked them all out one by one. Watching her little friends being let go like flying kites, Hong Yi was anxious. You're going to let me go? Su Luo sneered. If I let you go, who will compensate me for the mess in this room? Young lady, you are very valuable. Su Luo said while patting Hong Yi's head, then left her angry and confused, and went into the inner room, so Hong Yi was abandoned in the original place. Hateful, hateful, hateful. Hong Yi smashed her fist and punched the ground angrily. Chapter 1999, Genius Training Camp, 8. Su Luo's voice came coldly. 10,000 points for one tile. Don't hesitate to smash them. So expensive. You female robber. Female bandit. Hong Yi shouted angrily at Su Luo. It seems you are in quite high spirit. Those burns seem to be able to heal on its own. This young lady doesn't have to give you treatment. Su Luo spread her hands and went to work on her own affairs. Ah! Hong Yi looked up to the sky and screamed. She had always been taken care of and grew up protected and sheltered. She had always been the one who bullied others. When had she ever been so humiliated? Really hateful. Humph, wait until older sister Wei came here. There will be something good for you. Hong Yi clenched her fist and told herself to endure it. However, Hong Yi felt that time passed very slowly. After what it felt like century later, the familiar footsteps finally sounded outside. In fact, only 1 hour had passed. When Hong Yi heard the footsteps, she suddenly jumped up and shouted, "Older sister Wei, save me ah! Older sister Wei!" However, before her senior sister Wei came, a goose-yellow figure flashed by. Then, Hong Yi was grabbed by her throat. "Stop it!" When Wei Hua just came in, she saw this scene, and she was immediately furious. Su Luo smiled coldly, then threw Hong Yi like throwing a garbage, and cast a glance at Wei Hua. "Do you bring the points?" "What points?" Wei Hua said angrily. Su Luo swept her eyes behind Wei Hua's body. At this time, the 5 henchmen were not coming. Presumably they were recuperating. Wei Hua's ostentation was bigger than Hong Yi, followed by a dozen of people behind her. They all seemed to be full of vigor and have better skills than those 5 henchmen. Su Luo smiled lightly. Then redeemed this person with points. Otherwise, do you think my place was ruined like this for nothing? How many points? Wei Hua suddenly sneered. Su Luo held out 1 finger. 1,000 points? What a big talk. Wei Hua stared at Su Luo with condescending attitude. 1,000 points is a big talk. I clearly said it's 100,000 points. Su Luo said with a smile. 100,000. Wei Hua looked at Su Luo as if she was an idiot. It was hard to believe that Su Luo would ask this amount. She was 9 stars of commander rank, and would be promoted to the saint rank at any time, while Su Luo was just 2 stars of commander rank. A small 2 stars dared to be arrogant in front of her who was 9 stars? How dare you compete with the sun and the moon for brilliance? You're simply overestimating your capabilities. When I overestimating my capabilities or not, I won't know until I've tried. Su Luo folded her arms and sneered. Good. If you can receive 10 moves from me, I will give 100,000 points to you. Wei Hua waved her big hand, said domineeringly. Every word was said with a loud voice. However, the people behind Wei Hua spoke. Leader, why are you polite to her? Let's go together. Who would have imagined? This person's words hadn't finished yet, but Su Luo had already laughed out loud over there. The so-called leader, gang up to fight? This time I've learned a lot, ha ha ha. See, Su Luo laughed so wildly Wei Hua was angry. Shut up. The man was rewarded by Wei Hua's anger. Get lost. Remember, no one is allowed to participate in this battle. Under Wei Hua's furious glare, the group of people could only retreat helplessly. Chapter 2000, Genius Training Camp, 9. Wei Hua glanced at Su Luo contemptuously. Remember, within 10 moves. Got it. As long as I can stand 10 moves from you, you will compensate me 100,000 points. Su Luo casually waved her hand. But if you lose? Wei Hua smiled coldly. You have to hand over 3 treasures on you, that's the rule. Su Luo suddenly recalled of the prison on Firia that she had watched. When new prisoners came in, they had to fight first, tell them to smoke, and then slept in the place closest to the toilet. Su Luo couldn't help but sighed. No matter where she went, the new people were not easy to get along. Now, she would stand up first. She won't be bullied by others. Since she wanted to show her power, she should seize the strongest one. Hong Yi was not good enough. This big sister Wei was just right. Without waiting for big sister Wei to speak, Su Luo suddenly smiled coldly, and then a white light flashed. Su Luo took the initiative to strike first and rushed towards big sister Wei. Big sister Wei sneered. Just a small primary commander rank. Dare to fight her? Courting death. Big sister Wei didn't even bring out her weapons. She turned her palms and made heavy imprints one after another, surrounding Su Luo. A trap. Su Luo was a little scared of the trap, so she didn't wait for the trapping array to form. The Chungying sword in her hand had burst out. These imprints, like bubbles, were suspended in midair. The Chungying sword ruthlessly plunged into the first imprint bubble. The bubble burst. Big Sister Wei was shocked. She didn't expect that a small 2-star of commander rank like Su Luo was able to break her defense and pierce her imprint bubble. But then she sneered. So what if you could break it? Could you break my imprint faster than the speed I form my bubbles? Big Sister Wei's words had not fallen yet, and a series of 7 or 8 imprints already flew out of her hands. The more later, the faster her speed was, and finally almost came out in cluster. Su Luo knew that what Big Sister Wei said was true. If it was only with Chungying's sword, she couldn't keep up with her speed. But, could it be that she would concede? Impossible. Su Luo looked at Big Sister Wei, who was proud of herself, and there was a trace of deep smile in the bottom of her eyes. Little Red Lotus, go. Su Luo ordered. In her space he was wearing a small bright red dudu, with a high ponytail on his head. The plump white body rolled around on the lotus leaves. Hearing the order, Little Red Lotus immediately smiled. Soon after, it transformed into a cluster of flame, and joined with the Chungying sword. At this time, the power of Chungying's sword. Crash. Wherever Chungying's sword went, it swept everything on its way. Bang bang. Seeing that the array was about to be assembled, and seeing that Big Sister Wei's big move was about to be released at this moment, Chungying's sword was furious. Merging the Chungying sword of the Yin Luo Red Lotus, no one could stop them from doing anything. Where the sword moved, everything vanished in a puff of smoke. At this time, the imprint bubbles was just as fragile as the bubble blown out of soap water. Where the Chungying sword passed, there was crackling sound. The imprint bubbles was broken and disappeared. The imprint bubble, which had been painstakingly formed by Big Sister Wei, was cleaned up in a flash. Afterwards, Chungying's sword was obediently inserted into the sheath on Su Luo's back. Su Luo looked at the dazed Big Sister Wei in front of her with a smile. Chapter 2001, Genius Training Camp, 10. After shaking her head for a while, Big Sister Wei came back to her senses. Then she stared at Su Luo with disbelief. It's broken. She actually broke her imprint bubbles. Is this really a newcomer who just got in? Is this really a 2-star commander rank? In that moment when Big Sister Wei lost her senses, Su Luo had launched a sneak attack. The line of fire spread on the ground. It formed a square cage, trapping Big Sister Wei's in it. When Big Sister Wei discovered it, she only saw the square line on the ground. Then it exploded. Big Sister Wei was trapped in it. Big Sister Wei sneered. Do you think this will trap me? What a joke. With that, Big Sister Wei released ice energy, because she happened to be ice attributed. Just when Big Sister Wei thought that she could get out of the trap easily, she soon stopped smiling. Because she found these flames was very strange. No matter how much ice energy she released, she couldn't extinguish these flames. What's going on? Big Sister Wei was a little flustered. This was ridiculous. The opposite side was just a small 2-star. How come she could not extinguish the opposite side's fire? It was not logical at all. Su Luo, with her hands crossed around her chest, stood outside the ring of fire and calmly looked at Big Sister Wei, who was desperate in the fire cage, with a wicked sneer on her lips. This fire, however, was the flame of Yin Luo Red Lotus. Not to mention Big Sister Wei's 9 stars. Even a genuine saint ranked may also not be able to come out. At this time, Big Sister Wei was very pitiful. The little guy, Yin Luo Red Lotus, was very playful. In addition, Big Sister Wei was not polite to Su Luo before. At this time, he was just trying to help Su Luo to get revenge. Originally, the size was 3 times through, that was 9 square meters, slowly tightening and tightening. Later, it became 2 times 2 for square meters. Later, 1 square meter. Big Sister Wei was crying. Because the fire was really burning her eyebrows. I summon ice elements with my life. Big Sister Wei was helpless. She used the last move. In an instant, her ice element burst out. For a time, the ice system and the fire system were locked in a battle. After all, the Yin Luo Red Lotus was still a child. He had a fight with Hongyi before, and now she has been besieged Big Sister Wei for a long time, so it was hard to continue. I'm so tired. Little Red Lotus yawned, rolled back to Su Luo's space, turned into its original form, a red lotus, and recuperated. Of course, while Little Red Lotus withdrew, Su Luo sneered at Big Sister Wei. I can't really burn you to death this time, I will let you go. With a wave of Su Luo's hand, Little Red Lotus disappeared instantly. The two actions were nearly coincide. This was the mutual understanding of the contract. Other people really believed that Su Luo would let Big Sister Wei go. Even Big Sister Wei herself. At this time, the dizzy Big Sister Wei who was burned by the Yin Luo Red Lotus finally came out. But her figure was really awful. With Hong Yi and the previous 5 henchmen, it was like they were cast in the same mold, pitch black. Cough and cough dash Big Sister Wei kept coughing. Su Luo leisurely looked at her. Do you want to continue to compete? In fact, without the protection of the Yin Luo Red Lotus, Su Luo's strength had been greatly reduced. Chapter 2002, Genius Training Camp, 11. According to a normal person, after experiencing the ferocious Yin Luo Red Lotus, she would not dare to continue. But the brain circuit of Big Sister Wei could not be compared to normal people. As the result, Big Sister Wei boldly shook her head and set out a fighting stance. Come on. Su Luo smiled faintly. Without the Yin Luo Red Lotus, she still had her space gravity. Fine. Su Luo snorted and moved, quickly rushed towards Big Sister Wei. Big Sister Wei also rushed towards Su Luo. At the moment when the two of them were very close, with a hooting sound, Su Luo quietly released her space gravity. The first time people saw space gravity, without exception, they would all fall into the trap. So poor Big Sister Wei suddenly found that her speed had dropped. Just when she was stunned. Pa! A clear slapping sound rang in her ear. Pa 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 pa. Su Luo made a move without slightest hesitation, and heavily slapped Big Sister Wei's face. For a moment it was thrilling. At this time the people that Big Sister Wei brought all went mad. One by one, they all foolishly looked at Big Sister Wei, who was dizzy and confused. What in the world is going on? Isn't it too crazy? Big Sister Wei was the boss of this area. Shouldn't she be invincible? She was usually well known as fierce and malicious, okay? The words was that the big sister did not fight people, only beat people. Look how confident and aggressive she was. But now, a newcomer who was just past the assessment slapped her face, and that face became swollen like a pig's head. That slapping sound made them all had a headache for Big Sister Wei. This scene made this group of small lackeys looked completely dumbfounded, did not know what to do or how to react. Poor Big Sister Wei. According to her normal strength, if Su Luo wanted to thrash her like this, it was simply impossible. But because she used most of her spirit power to withstand the Yin Luo Red Lotus, at this time her spirit power was nearly exhausted, and the hateful Su Luo used her space gravity to initiate attacking others, so she was able to make her like this. So she became like this, turned into a pig's head by Su Luo. In the end, Su Luo's palm hurt. She sneered and left the big sister. Su Luo crouched, smiled and looked at Big Sister Wei. Hey, the agreement is 10 moves, why don't you stand up and fight? Big Sister Wei almost cried. Do you have to be such a bully? Now she didn't even have the strength to move a finger, okay? Su Luo saw that Big Sister Wei's eyes were closed, and she fainted. She felt that it was extremely funny. Since that was the case, let Big Sister Wei take a rest first. Anyway, Big Sister Wei had brought a large group of people. She was not worried that no one could accompany her to play. So Su Luo slowly stood up and looked over the group of lackeys. The group of lackeys lowered their heads one by one, afraid to look at Su Luo in the eyes. And then they were called out to accept the attack. Do you want to go up one by one or attack in a group? Asked Su Luo with a smile. In fact, after the few actions, there was not much left of Su Luo's spirit power. If this group of people were brave enough to rush in a group, Su Luo would definitely could only escape. Therefore, the more so, the more Su Luo showed as if the victory was already within her grasp, with manner as light as the cloud and the wind, to confuse the opponent. But these group of people didn't think so. The lackeys wanted to attack in a group, but who would dare to say this? Didn't you see that big sister Wei was completely beaten like this? Chapter 2003, Genius Training Camp 12. Normally, Big Sister Wei could beat 10 people by herself. Now, Big Sister Wei had been beaten silly by this horrible new female demon. It could be proved that this new female demon could definitely beat 10 of them. What to do? There's no doubt that they will die. The 10 people who were mortally afraid of death looked at each other and saw fear in each other's eyes. Later, the 10 people tacitly all admit defeat. No, how can we do things without manners like attacking in a group? We have no quarrel or enmity with you. Why would anyone want to do that? We just came to have a look. As for other things, we don't know at all. A new fellow disciple are just here. You should be busy, right? Then if you are busy, how about we go back first? If there is something you don't understand about this place, you can ask us. If there's nothing, we will. The group of people saw Su Luo just smiled but didn't speak. They didn't know where the courage came from. They sneak away quietly. At this moment, Hong Yi shouted loudly. Stop! You bastards! When older sister Wei wakes up, she won't spare you. Hong Yi wanted to cry but could not cry at this time. She had pinned all her hopes on Big Sister Wei. Originally, she believed that as long as Big Sister Wei came over, she would be safely returned, and she could take revenge on Su Luo. But, she couldn't guess the ending, let alone the process. Who would have thought that Big Sister Wei, who was still mighty a moment ago, would suffer a crushing defeat here? After the defeat of Big Sister Wei, Hong Yi stared foolishly and couldn't get back to her senses. When those lackeys wanted to run, she woke up. No, they can't run like this. Otherwise, what would she do? What about older Sister Wei? For a while, Hong Yi was busy quarreling with those lackeys, while Su Luo watched with interest as they had an internal strife. In the end, this question was still submitted to Su Luo. You can't go even if you wanted to. Su Luo slowly dropped a sentence. What do you want to do? The lackeys speak in unison. It's very simple. Stay or redeem with points to leave. Su Luo looked at them with a smile. For a while, everyone suddenly had an urge to cry, especially Hong Yi. In the beginning, she came to rob Su Luo on purpose, but who would have thought that Su Luo was so powerful, making the people behind her fell one by one. How much do you want? The lackeys were somewhat lacking in confidence, afraid that Su Luo would demand an exorbitant price. Su Luo actually wanted to send them away, because if the few of them really joined together, she really could not handle it now. How many points is your life worth? Don't you understand? Su Luo sneered. Although they had to be quickly sent away in order to have a good night's sleep, but Su Luo's haughtiness was high. So, several lackeys gathered together and whispered to each other. Soon they sent a representative to discuss with Su Luo. 10 of us, 10,000 points each, no more. This sentence was spoken with powerful and resonating voice. Su Luo listened, although her face was not happy, but her heart was happy. These lackeys Originally, she wanted to quickly send them away, but unexpectedly, she could still squeeze 100,000 points? Su Luo was happy but she coughed. You big guys, you're only worth 10,000 points. Chapter 2004, Genius Training Camp 13. 15,000, no more. The leader, who had seen the power of the ferocious female demon, had raised the price. Although his friends were all distressed, they did not dare to be angry in order to protect their lives. Su Luo knew when she should stop, so she frowned and snorted. All right, I don't have so much time. If it's 15,000, then it's 15,000. I'll sell it cheaply. Everyone was about to cry. Cheap. 15,000 is cheap. They were a group of people who are specialized in robbing and bullying newcomers. They had saved 15,000 points with great difficulty. Now they have to spend them all, okay? However, in order to protect their lives, these young men could only mourn, standing in line one by one. Each one was stiff and mournful, wanted to cry but had no tears, surrendering all their fortune to Su Luo. Then, they all left. Each one was bleak and sorrowful. Watching them leave, Hong Yi was anxious and shouted, "Hey! Hey you! Go tell my father." Without waiting for Su Luo to speak, those few bleak figures slipped away in an instant, and then disappeared. Su Luo looked at the two women in the hall, and suddenly she felt a little worried. How should she deal with these two? Forget it, keep selling. How many points could be sold? So Su Luo kicked Big Sister Wei's head with her feet. "Hey, wake up quickly. Don't think you can escape paying the points by fainting." When Big Sister Wei woke up and saw Su Luo, she started to roll quickly and subconsciously took a fighting stance. "What? Still want to fight?" Su Luo sneered. Big Sister Wei glared at Su Luo in an instant. She would never forget that slap. "Hurry up, just hand over the points and get out of here. Don't forget the previous 100,000 bet." Su Luo sneered. 100,000 points? Don't have it. Big Sister Wei sat down on the ground in a huff. Seeing that she was like the dead pig not afraid of the boiling water, Su Luo was speechless. "Come on, you are the boss in this area, okay? Is it really okay to sit on the ground and act shamelessly like a child?" I won't go. What can you do to me?" The big sister sat on the ground and refused to stand up. Su Luo stared blankly. At this time, why did the big sister resemble a foolish big sister? It seemed that her brain did not function well? It's unlikely caused by her before, right? But what does thrashing her face have to do with the brain? Su Luo didn't understand, so she asked Hong Yi, who should have understand. "This is your big sister? Why is your big sister like this?" With tears in her eyes, Hong Yi pointed at Su Luo and accused. "It's all because you. It's all because you. It's all because you." Su Luo was depressed. Could it be that she really broke Big Sister Wei? This is really... Su Luo has not finished sighing, but Hong Yi had already cried out. Older Sister Wei's brain is not very bright. She has been getting better in the past year with great difficulty. Now you are the cause of the disease. Su Luo sighed. This big sister is so big. How could she be broken so easily? So now what? Su Luo though that she might as well forget about earning point. It's better to sweep these two people out of the door. Now you can only cure older Sister Wei, or she will pester you, humph, and keep pestering you to compete until you are defeated. Hong Yi was a bit sad and a bit rejoicing in other people's misfortune. Chapter 2005, Genius Training Camp 14. Su Luo was shocked on the spot. What? Forever? Well, unless you're killed by her. Hong Yi said seriously. Su Luo suddenly touched her forehead gloomily. What's going on? What kind of trouble did she cause? You two leave. Su Luo tried to drive away the trouble. She won't want the points, okay? No way. It's impossible for older Sister Wei to leave unless you kill her. Hong Yi shouted loudly. At this time, Big Sister Wei had hugged Su Luo's thigh and raised her head. She looked at Su Luo foolishly, firmly and stubbornly, and said one word. Definitely won't let go. Su Luo was about to cry. You. Don't think I don't dare to kill you. Su Luo was so angry that she wanted to kick her, but when she saw the blank and innocent eyes of Big Sister Wei, she couldn't get it done. It was a pair of clear black and white eyes. The eyes was pure without any impurities. The only thing that was persistent was practicing martial arts. Su Luo could be sure that Big Sister Wei was definitely not acting. This big girl was simply martial mania. So, how did she get on the throne of the boss? Obviously, she only knew how to fight, not how to manage. But Su Luo understood at a moment's thought. It was likely that her subordinates raised her up and used her martial arts cultivation to earn points. Older Sister Wei doesn't have any points at all, and normally she didn't want them. They were all taken away by her men. The girl in red pursed her mouth and said pitifully to Su Luo, "Don't have any points, but dare to bet 100,000 points with me. Are you playing with me?" Su Luo roared at Hong Yi. Before this foolish big sister was quite normal, just like normal people, but after being beaten, how could she be so foolish? Now the problem Su Luo facing now was how to deal with this foolish big sister. Or how to get rid of this foolish big sister. For a while, Su Luo couldn't think of a good way, so she could only wave her hand helplessly to Hong Yi. Quickly get out of here. Hong Yi looked at the foolish older sister and Su Luo. She was uncertain for a moment and hesitated to ask, "You really won't kill older sister Wei?" "Why not?" Su Luo deliberately sneered. "You." Hong Yi was so angry, she clenched her fists. "You greedy female demon. Don't you like points best? Big sister Wei is good at fighting and earning points. In short, you can't kill older sister Wei." It had to be said that Hong Yi gave Su Luo a wake-up call. Since this foolish big sister could earn points, it was not a bad thing to let her stay. What's more, her strength was really good. At least there would be no pressure to defeat this area. Then, I'll see if she can earn points. Su Luo pretended to sneer, then slowly looked at Hong Yi. "You still owe me 100,000 points. Don't forget to deliver them when you go back." Su Luo just said it casually. It was best if she was able to deliver them when she returned, but if she couldn't do anything to Hong Yi for the time being. It's all depended on her self-consciousness. At last, Hong Yi took a deep look at her foolish older sister, turned around and ran away quickly. In the hall, the originally noisy scene suddenly turned silent. Su Luo looked at the foolish big sister who was lying on the ground and fell into a deep sleep. The corner of Su Luo's mouth evoked a slight smile. In fact, it's not a bad thing to have such a fierce foolish older sister as a thug. In her hands, this foolish older sister could definitely bring out her greatest light and heat. After a little thought, Su Luo came up with countless of good ideas to make this foolish big sister useful. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.